Yeah, after Hasbro. So we're gathered today to celebrate the life of a man who was very dear, very special, very beloved, and very caring and very good to his world, good to his family, good to his people. Someone who started out in a simple way, but finished his life doing so very not so simple things. He was a man who really, really cared about everyone in his life so deeply. Every person, each and every person, his neighborhood, his synagogue, his community was deeply important to him. So having all of you turn out today, having the family come from near and from far to pay tribute to him is an honor that he certainly would appreciate. In the Jewish tradition, the deceased is with us. Their neshama is present with us. Their physical self is also present with us. And they hear our words. And for him to hear that his children, shep nachas from him, that we saw all he did, all of his sacrifices, all of his trying hard to be the best he can be for everybody, that will give his life a great purpose, and that will give him comfort in his passing from this world. We start with a selection from the Psalms. We read the 23rd Psalm, first in Hebrew, then in English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo iksar, v'noi steshach yarbitzeni, al memenuchos yenachaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmaves, lo yirara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha, hima yenacha muni. Tarach lefanai shulchan neged tzairai. Nishante v'shem en roshi, kosi ravaya. Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai. V'shavti v'beis Adonai, la'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. In lush meadows he lays me down. Beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul. He leads me on paths of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley, overshadowed by death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in view of my tormentors. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days. We now read Psalm 130. Shir Hamalos Mimamakim Kerasicha Adonai. Adonai Shema V'Koli Tiaznacha Kashuvos L'Kol Tachanunoi. Im Avonos Tishmarya Adonai Miyamod Ki Imcha Haslicha Leman Tiverei. Kivisi Adonai Kivisa Nashi Belid Varo Hochalti. Nashi L'Adonai Meshamrim Laboker Shamrim Laboker. Yachel Yisrael El Adonai Ki Im Adonai Chesed V'Harbei Imo Fedus. V'Hu Yifteis Yisrael Mikol Avanosav. A song of ascents. From the depths I called you, O Lord. My Lord, hear my voice. May your ears be attentive to the sounds of my pleas. If you preserve iniquities, O God, who could survive? For with you is forgiveness, that you should be feared. I put confidence in God. My soul puts confidence, and I hope for his word. I yearn for my Lord among those longing for the dawn, those longing for the dawn. Let Israel hope for God, for with God is kindness, and with him is abundant redemption, and he shall redeem Israel from all of their difficulties. I stand here with an opportunity, a great merit, to be the rabbi, to help in the officiating, to help in the eulogies. But truly, there are two big rabbis who wish they would be here, because they have a lot to say, or they had a lot to say, about our dear Stan, or Stanley. So I'm here representing Rabbi Ben Susan, who many of us know very well from the synagogue, who so much would have wished to have been here, to be able to be a maspid, to be able to honor his good friend and one of his best congregants and his best supporters by himself, but he was not able to do so because of him being away. And similarly, Rabbi Goldberg, Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg from Boca, would have also wanted to be here to officiate, to eulogize his dear friend, but could not. So I stand here humbly representing these two rabbis and sharing the words that I have for you today. Stanley Smith was born April 27th, 1938. Stan the Man, as many people like to call him. He grew up in Cleveland in the Kinsman neighborhood. And in those days, Kinsman was a mixed neighborhood with Jews and with Italians, and he got along well with both. He was part of the Kinsman Cowboys, but he also was someone respected by everyone else. He was connected with his Jewish neighbors and all the other neighbors too. He went to Collinwood High School, where he probably was not so similar to all the folks there. One of the few Jewish boys there at the time. He was successful in his studies, and he was an amazing, excellent wrestler. He was able to go on scholarship to Ohio State, but due to an injury, he wasn't able to continue it. He came back and returned to finish his schooling at Kent State. One of the most important things that happened in his life was the process of building his family. It was in 1960 that he met his dear love of his life, met Joy. He was 22, and Joy was just 20 years old. He was a salesman because he loved people. I don't know if he always loved the product, but he loved the people, and he loved the process. He was a chemical salesman, and he became later a chemical sales manager. He and Joy were able to raise a beautiful family, a family of boys who kept Joy pretty busy with their boyness, with sports, and with doing many good things in the community. Many people who knew him only had the most beautiful praise to share of him. He was a great listener. He heard your problems. He felt your problems in a deep way. He was a great storyteller. He could lift you from your sadness and your depression with one great story or one great joke. He loved animals, and he had that calmness and kindness with his animals. And we all know that he owned a horse named Dusty Diablo, which if it wasn't for all of his work, he would have been riding him a little bit longer. He loved his parakeets, he loved his pets, but the story, I don't want to be insensitive, the story of how he sat on his parakeet was one of his favorite stories. Because even though it compromised a little bit of the values and the importance of a parakeet, it was much more important to make people happy and bring them the joy. So that was an often repeated story that he would share. He was a source of strength for many people with his encouragement and his good words and his good advice. He really cared for people, and he carried their burdens and their responsibilities. This was all on a personal level, on a one-on-one level. But what was amazing to me in hearing his story was that he took this to the next level. He carried the responsibilities and cared for the people, not just of his friends and his family, but of his people. For him, one of the most important things was helping a synagogue and helping to care for the sick and the needy. He really made a promise early on, that we'll hear about soon, to the Jewish people, that he would take care of them, that he would be there for the Jewish people in need. And that was the most important thing to him in his whole life, next to raising his family. And that's why, Stuart, in the last conversation that the two of them had, that's what he wanted. He wanted reassurance that his people would be taken care of. The people that he cared for so much, he wanted that they would be taken care of as much as possible by someone else. I wanted to share with you a few words that were given to me by Rabbi Ben Susan, where Rabbi Ben Susan wanted to share the special relationship that they had had for over 35 years. One day, it was just before Rosh Hashanah, the week before, and he came to the rabbi and he basically said, "I'm ready to grow, Rabbi. I want to learn Torah, I want to do more mitzvahs." And the rabbi was quite intrigued. This didn't happen every day, that someone basically walked in the door and said, "Hey, Rabbi, I want to do more." And he explained to him that he was visiting a school and he was selling chemicals, and he just saw the children learning and the joy that they had and the Yiddishkeit that they shared, and it just made a spark inside of him grow. It connected to something who he was deep inside. And that's all he needed. He just needed that spark lit to have this dream and this mission. And he had to start from the very beginning. He was a true Baal Tshuva. The rabbi said he didn't know how to hold the siddur. He didn't know where to sit. He didn't have a seat in Rinat Israel. But they had to make something work. But he went from being a regular guy who didn't know how to hold the siddur to the president of Rinat Israel, to the president of Yabi. And he was a key member in the Jewish community. He advocated for the Hebrew Academy on various committees. He advocated for many different community Jewish causes. He became an expert in the needs of his people, even though he himself was, a beginner at one point. He didn't just take this mission to himself, he made this a mission of his family. He made sure that his kids had the best Jewish education, that they were the most inspired, and the kids grew. They grew so much like he did. They grew in Hebrew and Siddur and Tanakh and Mishnah and so many different things. He became, like I said, the president of many committees, including the Yabi Hebrew Schools, the Bureau of Jewish Education, and he even widened his scope of Jewish involvement to the Federation. He was involved in Federation budget committees, education committees, and so on and so forth. And it was amazing because he had two big gifts to share with these people he helped in the Jewish community. His love of Yiddishkeit, his enthusiasm for Judaism was so strong, he brought that wherever he went. but also his business knowledge, his business acumen. He knew how the world works, and he brought that practicality to the people that he assisted. And furthermore, he was just so sincere, and he was just so honest that he didn't have to convince people what he was trying to do or why he was trying to do. It was just so transparent and so obvious what this man wanted to do. One of the things I think a rabbi doesn't always enjoy is the politics. Is that having a committee meeting with so many different opinions and people sometimes not always agreeing with the rabbi, right? You might be surprised if people don't always agree with the rabbi in a synagogue. And so there was one shul meeting where he had enough. Stan was like, this is not right. Too many people complaining, too many people making it hard for the rabbi. He just got up and he said, you know what? We have one rabbi. He's the rabbi. He knows what he needs to do. Just listen to him. And everyone sat down, stopped their complaining, and went on with the meeting. But the thing for him, it wasn't enough what he did when he was healthy, when he was well. He knew that when he retired, when the time would come that he would come to Boca, that was his prime. That was his time to shine and to do something. He had seen in the Cleveland community, he had seen the Bikur Cholim. He had seen this organization that helped the sick. He saw how they brought food, they gave rides, how they visited, and he was determined to bring this exact model to Boca Raton. And so he was in touch with Sarah Shapiro at that time, who was a very strong leader, a Rebbitzin from Wycliffe. It didn't scare him. He got everything he could from the Rebbitzin and had this formula for the Bikur Cholim. And Rabbi Ben Susan said it took no less than 50 phone calls between the two of them to get the whole plan together. What did you have to do? How did you do it? How could you pull it off? Etc. And the rabbi said every time he would call him, he would always start the conversation the same way. Rabbi, I got something important to ask you. And he would have the most important questions. And, one of the first questions he asked was, okay, I'm a Kohen. I can't be around people who are deceased. How can I do this? Should I do this? He was ready to throw it all away if the rabbi said, no, as a Kohen, you can't do it. But, of course, it was okay. So he was successful. He was able to get the retired doctors and the people in his synagogue, and he built himself a very successful Bikur Cholim organization in Boca Raton. But one of the cool things about him was that he didn't give jobs to other people. He just did the jobs himself. And I was admiring one of the signs, that they had put up. It says, do you know someone who could benefit from a friendly telephone call? And it didn't have like a Bikur Cholim office or something. It said, call Stan Smith. And it's got his cell phone right there. Just give him a call. So that's the story that Reb Ben Susan wanted to share. The share of a man who really believed in his rabbi, trusted in his rabbi, and took his guidance, but a person who really supported his community and did everything he could for him. Also, Rabbi Greenberg, from Boca shared, similar, is that he just saw the determination of this man and how much he cared and how much he wanted to get things done, and nothing would stop him. And the rabbi said, can you imagine a man whose mission is to do Bikur Cholim, but shows up at your room in a wheelchair? A sick man comes to visit the sick, and that was truly his thing. And there's a really quick story about a famous rabbi, Rabbi Shach, and he was a big leader in the Jewish community. And when he got sick, he got to the hospital, and instead of staying in his bed, he actually was not there. And so some of his followers came to him and said, Rabbi, what are you doing? You're in hospital. You should be in the bed. You should be resting. And the rabbi said, you know what? All day long I sit at my desk and I comfort people who are sick, and I try to picture what their situation is like and how to help them. But I'm not in their situation. I'm just picturing it and helping them from my perspective. But when I was in the hospital and I was sick and I was suffering and I was in pain, there was no better time for me to comfort the sick than then. So that's how I look at his life, and his focus on the Bikur Cholim at the end of his life. When I'm sick, when I don't feel good, I'm going to use that energy to comfort people and make them feel better at their difficult time. So our community, we owe him a great debt of thankfulness. And I know how he's inspired his family, to be good Yidden, to be good people, to take care of other people. That is something we can never pay him back. We can never sufficiently show appreciation. And he certainly was very proud in his kids, in the way that they took his leadership, his kids and his grandkids. And, he would be very proud and very happy with what he sees today. So those are my words, from a man who didn't know him so well, but representing people who knew him really well. And now I turn the microphone over to his children, who will share for us their personal, anecdotes and appreciation. We'll start with the oldest by a slight moment.
3 minutes, by the way. 3 minutes older.
Thank you, Rabbi, for those kind words. Hoshia et amecha, uvorech et nachlatecha, ureim v'natzem ad ha'olam. Save your people, bless your inheritance, and elevate them, and carry them forever. This song is known to be famous. It's known to be a famous song in the Lubavitcher community. It's actually one of the favorites of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's. But what most people don't know is that this song was created by Rabbi Avram Twersky, who composed it actually in 1960, which is ironic because I didn't realize that my mom and my dad met in 1960, so it has even more meaning. But Rabbi Twersky was a trailblazer. He was head of the Department of Psychology in Pittsburgh, and also happened to be a Hasidic rabbi. So a very secular Jew with two professions. He'd helped tens of thousands of people through his two careers, and he loved to sing. Rabbi Twersky also said that every individual was a gem. We would just have to polish them off and wipe the dust away. The more I read about this song and Rabbi Twersky, the more I thought of my father and some traits that they share. Hoshia et Hamecha was actually my father's favorite song. And growing up, my father loved to sing this song at every Shabbos meal. Every Shabbos meal. We actually couldn't leave the table on Shabbos until we actually sang 3 songs. Remember that? Like Rabbi Twersky, my father cared deeply about the Jewish people and wanted to help any Jew he could. From the time he became religious in his late 40s, he desired to be part of something special. He jumped into religion with both feet. Before you knew it, after only a few months of learning how to read Hebrew, our kitchen was being koshered and he was keeping Shabbos. My father had such a strong belief in unconditional faith in Hashem that in his professional life and personal life, he never wavered or made excuses for what he believed in and felt was right. Even when professionally at times it wasn't the best for his career. Shabbos, keeping kosher, wearing a kippah under a hat was something my father would not compromise on. He wanted his children to get the Jewish education he never was able to get, like going to an Orthodox Hebrew high school, then study Torah in Israel in our gap year, and then on to Yeshiva University. To see his grandchildren in Yeshiva day schools made him so proud, and he knew it was all because of him. As he liked to tell us, if it wasn't for him becoming religious, his children wouldn't have met their Ashes Chayels. And he was right. Nothing made my father happier than to be part of the Mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. He was a part of Bikur Cholim in Cleveland, and then when my parents moved to Boca, he realized that there was a gap in providing kindness and selfless devotion for those in South Palm Beach County, where he lived. Hoshia et Hamecha, save your people. This was to be my father's legacy. He was driven to create and was successful in creating, as we know, the first Bikur Cholim, South Beach County, not of South Beach County, and organizing a team of volunteers to visit the sick. My father wanted to help whoever he could, whenever he could, and wherever he could. My father's passion was walking into a hospital room looking like a rabbi, which he loved, people calling him that, and reciting the traditional prayer for healing of the sick, the Mishaberach. He believed his obligation in life was to provide a source of comfort and prayer and an ear for those that needed it. He thrived on it, actually. As we all know, he was a great joke and storyteller and a better listener. Urem v'natzem ad ha'olam. Elevate them and carry them forever. My father did this by fighting for and succeeding in creating the first Shabbos room in the area at Boca Memorial Hospital. And recently, as a few months ago, a second Shabbos room opened up at another local hospital based on the vision and hard work of my father that my father had created. And surprisingly, only 6 weeks ago, my father was working on fundraising for Bikur Cholim home for family members to stay at so they could be with their families. I was amazed that when his health was declining and sometimes his ability to stay up was a challenge, he would get on the phone to speak with someone about donating money, time, or equipment, and he took everything for Bikur Cholim, and he transformed. He put on his salesman hat and sold the value of his organization and his belief and had his pitch. His passion came through on the phone, and once he had you, he had you. I believe that his passion for Bikur Cholim provided him strength much longer than we realize to keep him going. In his life, my father wanted to create a family legacy of religious Jews. Check that box off. He wanted to comfort and help as many Jews as he could with Bikur Cholim. Check that box off. He wanted to inspire and guide his family and community. Check that box as well. Dad, your memory will be a constant source of guidance and inspiration to us all. I can confidently say you made the most of your time in this world. Simcha ben Meir HaKohen truly lived by Rabbi Twersky's words of Oshia et Amecha uvarech et Nahalatecha urem v'natzem ad haolam.
Thank you, Rabbi, again for your kind words. Stephen, beautiful. A lot of things that I'm going to say would just be repeated over and over again, because it's all true, though. Loyalty, perseverance. My father, even becoming religious, was extreme struggle, and he pretty much went against everyone in his family, extended family, everyone he knew. No one could believe that someone who didn't even want to go to a Reform temple, or ate everything that he can think of that was exotic, that wasn't kosher, because he didn't know about kosher in those days, could just turn on a dime. My father had true MS. I've never met anyone who would have such MS like my father. Didn't care what anyone said. As soon as he learned that it was something that Hashem wanted, something that the Torah said, he wanted to do it, black and white. Everyone said, like my brother said, the rabbi said, he never wavered. He just moved forward. And again, perseverance at the end of his life with the Bikur Cholim. Never gave up. He had a hard time letting go because he wanted to stay the way that he envisioned it, and the way that he wanted to grow in his concept. And he loved it so much. It was his baby that he really it was hard for him to see anyone to do as good of a job as him. And his dedication to his family, to his work, was exceptional. His work, the work ethic that he instilled in his family, was really something that I lived, and I live through today, and I hope to pass over to my children. Every Sunday morning, he had boys, so we'd always have to do yard work. You couldn't see your friends until you spent a few hours in the yard doing the yard work or cleaning the garage or doing something. He'd find something for you, even if it wasn't that, it was done right. He'd find something for you to do every Sunday morning. Don't think about going anywhere until we visit his sister, Olav Shalom. Go there first for some bagels and coffee, and then come back home and do the yard work. That was when we knew that we couldn't do anything till at least 11 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock on Sunday. That was the work ethic that he really instilled in us. Stubbornness. He was really stubborn, but that stubbornness got him to where he was. He, like I said, he wouldn't take no for an answer in terms of raising money or people telling him that you can't do this. He just went for it because what he believed in was really how he lived his life. He told great stories. He was a great listener. He made everyone laugh. I know he made my children laugh all the time. Could have been the simplest story or just the wackiest story. He just came up with these stories. I don't know if they all were true about his life. I don't know if he made them up on the spot, but he had a way of really communicating with people through stories, and I know my children will never forget that. They will always talk about his stories. And Stephen took my line about, he always would say, because in the beginning it was very hard for us to go along with his path But he'd always say, you know, you can thank me. One day you'll thank me, because if it wasn't for him becoming religious and being, you know, having us do what we need to do in his mind, she was right. We never would have met our wives and have the brood children, which he took tremendous. He had tremendous knockus from. And a common theme that will be run through today, obviously, and then through Shiva will be his Bikur Cholim. I heard something really special from Rav Moshe Don Kastenbaum about Shavuos. And in Shavuos, which I really think this epitomizes my father's life, especially the second part. I'd say he had two lives. The first part was in Cleveland, then once he went to Florida, he really stepped it up even another level. We read about Megillas Rus, and how, you know, Rus was Naomi was her mother-in-law. Naomi, without telling the whole story, they left Israel. Her family left Israel, and she had two sons. And all the men in her husband and men in her life died. She had two daughter-in-laws that she told didn't have to come back to Israel for her, and, you know, go back to your own homeland. And one did, one went back, and then Rus didn't. Rus went back to her mother. Such a chesed. She didn't have to do that. She had tremendous chesed for her mother, and she went back with her quietly. It wasn't a big deal, but she said, no matter what, no, I want to be with you and your people. She gave everything up. I think it's a nice, pretty quiet, private act that she did. Then they go to Israel. Boaz, which was a relative of Naomi, you know, by hashgacha pratis, by divine intervention. Rus worked at the field of Boaz, and you know, they didn't have a lot of money, and at the time she had to pick up grains from the field of Boaz, and because he was a very wealthy man, and Boaz made sure that the workers didn't bother Rus, and you know, he even gave her more than she needed. And it was, again, another small chesed, quietly probably. It wasn't a big, with not a lot of fanfare, but such chesed that Boaz showed Rus. And obviously the story goes that Rus ends up marrying Boaz, and they have David HaMelech. You know, David, one of the greatest kings of Jewish history. And through his lineage, God willing, in the future will run through again for the Jewish people, a king that comes from the family of David HaMelech. When you think about it, this story, really, okay, it's a beautiful story, but I'm sure we have hundreds of stories in Jewish history about this. What is? I mean, it was nothing at the time. You wouldn't think it was anything special. It was a quiet. Everything happened through chesed. Through it wasn't no fanfare. You didn't have to make a big deal of it. But yeah, every year we read this story. Every year we read the story in Shavuos, because it was something that, and you showed through chesed, through small acts of kindness, something great came. And I think it's a huge reward of keeping the Torah. And Ruth and her mother-in-law, Boaz to Ruth, and again, we still talk about David HaMelech to this day, and we read the Megillah once a year, and it became something big. And when my parents moved to Florida, and he started Bikur Cholim, it's not easy. A lot of people can't do this. A lot of people don't want to deal with the sick or the elderly, and they just it's not their fault. They're not capable of doing that. And my father thrived on that. And quiet acts of kindness, quiet acts of chesed that he did, and turned into something very, very powerful in Boca. And you know, it was just incredible. I just think it's incredible greatness, and the reward of just performing these small acts of chesed quietly and sneezely has the greatest impact. on him, on his family, and all Klal Yisrael. And it's really something that I hope I can do, hope my kids can do, and they'll learn from that. And it's he was really it's something unbelievable that it's really special, and we're very proud, and we take a lot of comfort in knowing that he's in a better place now, and he did everything that he could while he was alive. So thank you, Dad, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you.
Someone's reading. He's gonna do it through the Zoom?
No, I
Ask Ari.
Yeah, on behalf of Joy, someone's going to be reading, her words of appreciation to the family and community.
This is from my grandmother. He fulfilled half of his dreams. He was told South Palm Beach. In his head, he was always thinking of ways to help people. Inshallah, have an aliyah. Thank you all for being here for us.
This is there's more. This is for my grandmother. Stanley would have been overwhelmed to see so many of the friends and family here today, and all of their kind words and outpouring of love and support for him and his family. He fulfilled half of his dream for Bikur Cholim, South Palm Beach. In his head, he was always thinking of ways to help people. May his neshama have an aliyah. Thank you all for being here for us and his family.
Thank you so much to the family for everyone sharing their beautiful words and inspirations from his life. Now we're going to move to the next stage of the service, which is giving our kavod, giving our honor to Simcha, to Stanley, in a physical fashion. So the Jewish custom is that we are all going to rise, and we're going to go ahead and lower the casket. And when the casket is lowered, we all have an important mitzvah of placing earth on top. The idea is that as a community, as a family, we're going to make sure that his last physical needs in this world are met by us. It's our opportunity to give a true kindness and a true special gift to him. So we're going to have the casket lowered. The immediate family is going to place earth on top of the casket. Then we're going to put the special cover on. And after the special cover is on, everyone else in the crowd here will have an opportunity to participate in the mitzvah. Okay, so go ahead and place your shovel full on top. We'll take the shovel out, and then we replace it, and then the next person takes the shovel out.
I'll give you a little rock.
A little. Lines. We'll make a line over here, a line over there. Please take a shovel full of earth, place on top, put the shovel back, then the next person will do the same. Yeah, we're gonna have to use the equipment to finish the covering, and then once the equipment covers it, we'll see. Ideally, yeah. Mom can sit here. Mom can sit here.
Out of this chair.
It'll be like 5 minutes or so.
Thank you. So that's what I put in the table. That's what I said. They told me to put it in. They want it's 12.
Rabbi?
It's like doing,
Yeah, was it?
yeah, you wanna do it?
Women?
It's like doing the yard work at home.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
It's like doing the yard work. Yeah, I had to do it at home.
Right. Actually, we was the home in Richmond Heights. Wasn't it the home in Richmond Heights? Where they had all the animals?
Every Sunday. No,
Those homes?
every Sunday.
Mostly there, right?
You see them in the garage.
I still
So you did.
John, your blood pressure.
Of course, we're just we're gonna return to our places before, and we're gonna finish the service with two of the prayers and the Kaddish. Just a very short thing. One of the things that Rabbi mentioned to me was that he was very proud of his being a Kohen. And on Yom Kippur, when everyone wears white and you wear a white yarmulke, he had a special white yarmulke that said Kohen Gadol, the big Kohen, and he loved to wear it. He was very proud, and it also brought people joy. And this week's portion, this Torah portion, is about the Kohanim, about the ability to bless the people. So if there's a comfort in the time that we're bearing him, it's the Parsha of the Kohanim, the Parsha that reminds us of the great ability that God gave to the Kohanim to bless his people, to transfer his blessing from heaven to the earth. So now we're going to please rise. And just before we do so, I'm sorry, just a little bit about the Shiva information. Following the services today, we're going to have Shiva at the Katz residence, 2425 Bryan Drive in Beechwood. That's going to be from 12:30, and then it's going to go until 4 p.m. on this eve of the Sabbath, Erev Shabbos. And it's going to take place also Saturday evening following Shabbat, which is around 9:45. And then it's going to take place on Sunday morning until 10 a.m. And the family will, be returning to their locations. You can watch this on YouTube starting on June 12th. And if anyone wants to make a donation, they're welcome to make a donation to the Bikur Cholim, South Palm Beach County. You can find it on the internet. You can Google it. And now we're going to see the El Mali Rachamim prayer. El Mali Rachamim, Sheikhein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechayna Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'Malos Kedoshim Otaharim, Kezarakia Mashirim Es Nishmas, Reb Simcha Ben Meir HaKohen, Shahalach Leilamo, Bavor Shanachtu Mispalim Ba'Haskaras Nishmaso, Began Eden Tehei Menuchaso, Lechein Bal Harachamim, Yastirechu B'Seisa Kanafav Le'olamim, V'yitzor B'tzar Chayim Is Nishmaso, Adonai Hu Nachalaso, V'yanuach Al Mishkavo B'Shalom, V'Nomar, Amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the soul of our most beloved, Meir, Simcha, the son of Meir, the Kohen, who has gone into his world and for whom we pray. May his resting place be in the Garden of Eden, and may the Master of Mercy shelter him in the shelter of his wings for all eternity. May he bind his soul in the bonds of life. God his heritage, and may he repose in peace on his resting place. And we say together, Amen. So we're going to finish the service now with the Kaddish, but just before we say the Kaddish, after the service concludes, we're going to make what's called the row of consolation. We're going to go, on the road here as it heads towards the parking lot, and everyone who's not a mourner is going to make two rows. Two people, your faces face each other, and people walk in between the two columns of people with their faces facing each other. And that's a special Jewish tradition that allows the mourners to leave the cemetery first, but it also makes them walk past us. And as they walk past us, we have the mitzvah of comforting the mourners, which is a special mitzvah. So after the Kaddish is recited, folks are going to make those two rows, and then the mourners are going to leave the cemetery through the two rows. Okay? So now we're going to gather the family. We're going to say now the Kaddish together, nice and slow. It's a special, facing the Mitzvah. It's a special, longer Kaddish said by the sons at the occasion of the burial.
Rapha, Kohalia, Mataya, Ulasaka, Lahaye, Alma, Une, Karta, Jerusalem, Gushaklel, Tehala, Vigava, Umekar, Kohana, Nukra'a, Mera'a, Otava, Kohana, Ishmaya, Atra, Yamlik, Kucha, Mirihu, Bemahute, Ikare, V'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uvchaye, Dechol, Beit Yisrael, Ve'almala, Uvizman Kariv, V'nomaru, Bimru, Amen.
Yeshmei Rabba Mevarach
Omei, Omaya.
Yisbarak, Ve'yishtabah, Ve'yishpa'ar, Ve'yisromen, Ve'yisnaseh, Ve'yishadar, Ve'yishaleh, Ve'yishalal, Shemei, Ve'kusha, Berichu, Le'allah, Miko, Berchasa, Ve'shirasa, Tushbechasa, Ve'nechamasa, Da'amiran, Be'alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehei, Shalama, Rabbah, Mishemaya, V'chayim, Tovim, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, B'romav, Ubarachamav, Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen.
Okay, everybody. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make those two lines, please, if you don't mind exiting behind the tent.